We're back, students. I'm ready to give you some additional ideas on how to successfully complete the other assessments in the class. We'll be looking at the last two graded discussion questions and the case plan. And I'll give you a brief reminder now at this point that you still need to make sure that you have completed all your journal entries and that you fully participate in any discussion questions posted in the classroom. Now that you have completed the first set of assessments, you are now ready to move on to the other more interesting projects. We have two more graded discussion questions and the other parts of the case plan, a few more journal entries, and participation to consider. I will give you an update on these assessments at this time. The graded discussion questions. We have graded discussion questions 6.2 and 8.1 left. Each graded discussion looks at a specific element of the readings in the course. Some of the ideas may also be covered in the BBC sessions. Graded discussion question 6.2. This discussion question focuses on issues related to elder care. Is your community well equipped to address the needs of the elderly? Are you adequately trained to understand the presenting needs of your elderly client? Is your agency sufficiently structured to address the concerns of the elderly? There are three major elements of elder care we want to discuss, and which can form part of graded discussion 6.2. These are financial planning, health care planning, and institutional end-of-life decisions. The Caribbean is not the only community where one of the main concerns of the elderly is who gets to assist them in securing their money. If you have an elderly mother or grandmother or father, you may recall their anxieties over whether the funds in their bank account is correct, who writes checks, etc. The elderly are prime targets for fraud and dishonesty, even from family members. Two elements of the financial planning process are getting a will and securing bank accounts. Many elderly persons in the Caribbean have no legal will. This creates a number of problems later in life when they are either not in a mental state to get a will done or are just too stubborn to accept that a will is needed. Family greed can now present a much bigger problem. How does the social worker handle this? What resources are there at the disposal of the case manager in situations like these? These questions provide a great starting point for a response to this discussion question. Another interesting situation here is how bank accounts are handled. Elderly persons, while not being able to handle their bank accounts, have fears about passing on this responsibility to others, and I guess rightfully so. Money can sometimes become the great divider. Can the social work agency help in this situation? If the banking situation is creating stress for your client, how will you resolve the problem? Are there resources at your disposal, or is there an adequate supply of referral contacts you can use? You may want to start making a list of such persons early in your career as a case manager. Another matter of great significance which will present in your practice relates to adequate health care for the elderly. Does your community have clear DNR guidelines? Do not resuscitate. I've learned that many Caribbean communities do not even address that matter But even if there's no clear plan, is there some shadow of a plan that you can use? Has the client adequately planned for end-of-life healthcare needs? Is there a good insurance plan in place? If no plan exists, does your community have adequate healthcare services for the elderly? If your client presents with these issues, and there are no resources available, or there are inadequate resources, what do you do? Is there adequate medication processes? Do you have a way of knowing who to contact if your client presents with similar problems? Do you have professionals like these on your speed dial list, or on your wherever you keep your important list of names and referrals? Does your agency even service the needs of the elderly? And if not, what referral system do you have in place? In many Caribbean communities, we have noticeable deficiencies in this respect. Graded discussion question 6.2 helps us to look at some of these issues. The one big question many families encounter is what to do with the elderly with regards to ongoing care. If there are still communities where there is a stigma surrounding placing parents in daycare centers, geriatric centers, or independent living facilities. How does the Working Children respond to the ongoing needs of elderly parents or grandparents? My aunt is now in a state of dementia and lives in a residence for persons like herself. Some may argue that we should all put together as professionals from many disciplines, including social work, law, and medicine, and keep her at home. Our decision was controlled by the quality of care we are able to provide. We decided that specific professionals in this field could do a better job caring for her than we could. How will you advise us? Think of this as you research this graded discussion question. Graded discussion 8.1. This discussion question focuses on the termination process. This is an important part of the case management plan and process. There is a right and a wrong time to terminate. Termination should always be a positive experience for your client. Your readings suggest that the client should not feel dumped at termination. Termination should be considered in the goal-setting stage. Termination is the last step in a process and not an unexpected end to a good relationship. You must pay close attention to the steps you have taken or will take from the intake stage through the goal-setting stage. Consider all these factors as you proceed. Termination must also include plans to monitor the client after the case management experience. This follow-up plan ensures that your client does not leave with the impression that there was a premature end to the client-case manager relationship. These are all important considerations. That's a clue to how you're going to address graded discussion 8.1. And now we move on to our case plan. Like we said earlier, the case plan is worth 60% of your grade. So I guess that says that it deserves special attention. Part 2 of the case plan is maybe the body of the case plan. You have to clearly define the goals for the client. The goals must be written by the stated needs, be driven by the stated needs, and should be influenced by the perspective of the client. You need to have reasonable and achievable goals. Be sure to have just enough goals to achieve success for the client. You do not want that at termination you are unable to accomplish a majority of your stated goals. I suggest that each goal should be supported by a professional or research perspective. In other words, the goals which are set must be based on sound theory and guided by the social work underpinnings. Your goals will direct the intervention plan. They should not be in conflict. The intervention plan, while being very specific, must also address the stated needs of the client. Remember that while you may not have all the resources in your agency, there's a wide community of resources and experts you can call on. Be sure that the plan meets the stated goals of your client. Part 3 of the case plan can be considered maybe your final stage of the planning process. This assessment is the continuation and conclusion of your case plan. This section of the plan addresses the designed follow-up. You need to look at the important elements included in this slide to guide you. Monitoring referrals, the follow-up visits if needed, and is the client well served. Ensure that each member of your case management team has a clearly defined role. Try not to duplicate roles. If Margaret is doing the research, then she should not have to write also. The richness of the plan will be seen in the involvement of each member of the team. When I led the interdisciplinary team, I depended on the psychiatrist to bring the expertise on psychotropic medication. We did not expect that expert to voice opinions on behavioral interventions. As team leader, it was my job to present the summary findings of the entire team. Similarly, I will expect that each member of the team plays his or her role. This is your only guarantee of success. We must work together. At the end of case plan 3, you're getting ready for submission. And that's the point when you can shout together, "Congratulations, I have successfully completed all assessments." I hope I've provided some basic information that will guide you. You'll notice that we have been working together as a team in determining the best times for submission of each part of the plan. I've posted all these assessments. I've set specific deadline dates, and we will work with these deadline dates as closely as possible. If I perceive that there is a need for minor adjustments, I will go ahead and do that. But I expect that you work arduously to meet the deadlines set for each assessment. Good luck, and see you in the BBC session as we further discuss some of these ideas.